1. Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week is the man with the keys to victory, John Keys.
Hello. How is everybody today? I hope everybody's doing good, staying warm, not freezing, but warm.
You know what? Yeah. It's funny thing about being here in Texas is that, we had, 2 weeks of like 60 and 70 degree weather in the middle of February, and then it rains, and then it comes back, it's wintertime again.
Exactly. I just hope that my company opens up a place out in Costa Rica, because that's right there on the equator. I would be perfect there. IT, holla at your boy.
Yeah, you could work remotely. That would be it. If I could not have to go into the office and just work from home, that would be great. But
yeah, the service desk would hate me forever if I did that.
Well,
so, let's go on.
Let's talk about fights. It was a war weekend. We didn't cover it as such. Usually we define a war weekend as having three major fights in one weekend. That is what we had. Bellator 215, Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Kharitonov. We had Bellator 216, Michael Venom Page versus Paul Simtex Daley. And then on Sunday, UFC on ESPN, Francis Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez. 3 major fights in one weekend. That, my friend, is a war weekend.
Indeed. It was rock'em sock'em all weekend. Surprisingly, Bellator did not disappoint that much. UFC did not disappoint as usual. Okay. It was a good weekend. It was a good weekend all around.
All right. Well, before we get too far into it, let's go into the official decision.
The official decision.
This is the official decision. This is where we look at the fights that were this weekend. Like I said before, this was a war weekend. Starting off with Bellator 215, Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Kharitonov, February 15th, 2019 at Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. We're going to cover the 2 fights that I think are the most important fights on the card. Eduardo Dantas, who defeated Toby Mishek. I have to get his name right. I got to get his name right. That ain't right. Toby,
don't ride up on us. Don't ride up on us, man.
Yes,
okay.
Don't. I owe you the respect of saying your last name correctly, but you lost via unanimous decision.
And then, it's okay, man.
Yeah, and then Matt Mitrione defeated, or he didn't defeat.
Yeah, he did.
If it was in the street, he would have defeated, but it was in a ring, so it was ruled a no contest. Groin kick to Sergey Kharitonov. Sergey could not recover in time. They decided to rule it a no contest, and so I don't know what's going to happen, with whether or not they're going to roll that one back or not. But 15 seconds into the fight, there's not much that you can say about that fight.
Yeah, you can. He got kicked in the ding-ding. Okay, that's what you can say. He got kicked so hard, I saw cartoon stars fall out of his shorts. Okay, it was bad. It was heard too. You could hear that kick too. It was. As soon as it happened, you saw Matt Mitchell like, yeah, I did it. My bad. It wasn't even a my bad. Like, oh man, I did that. It was one of those type of looks. And yeah, it was the impact was deep, and they will not rebuild. Okay, I'm sorry. The waters did not recede on that one, man. He was done. He was done. I feel sorry for the guy.
All right. Well, it was unfortunate. That's how they ended the fights on February 15th. Came back on the 16th, though, with Bellator 216. I thought it was interesting. It was Bellator 215 on February 15th. Bellator 216 on February 16th. See that? 216, 215, February.
Oh, Lord.
What?
I didn't catch that.
Scott Coker is a marketing genius.
Yes, he is. We'll give him that. We couldn't get a Valentine's Day's massacre though. That
Oh,
well, because people would, yeah, men would have died that night because they would have went to watch that, and their women would not have been happy with that. There would have
well,
been blood in the streets.
Bellator 216 featured Michael Venom Page and Paul Daley. These were the next round of the welterweight Grand Prix that's going on right now.
Hmm.
Same venue, Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. There were three fights on the card that I thought were of mention. Of course, we got to talk about Czech Congo, who defeated Vitaly Minakov
Hmm. Yeah.
via
Okay.
unanimous decision. Mirko Krokop defeated Roy Nelson. I think Roy Nelson's just gone on a slide, man. It's been a while since I've seen him win a fight.
It's true. I mean, it happens with fighters. They hit that pinnacle, and then the slide begins. I mean, and props to Mirko. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He still had a dog, and he still had a bone in the fight,
Right.
and he was doing his best to put it to him, and it showed.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, but I guess it's one of those things where Mirko Krokop, he's coming to the end of his career, so you would
Hmm.
expect Roy Nelson to be able to make this a fight, but I guess it's still one of those things where Roy Nelson is a first round fighter. If you can get out of the first round with Roy Nelson, then the odds of you winning that fight go up dramatically.
Okay, so let me walk that back. Let me walk my statement back just a little bit because I'm making it sound like that Roy Nelson just wasn't game that night. He was really game.
Was
They
he?
were going back and forth. There was striking involved. It's just that you know Roy's striking just wasn't there, and Mirko's wasn't there either. So he's just going to put more on him. And at the end, it was Mirko who, for where I always say it looked like he bulked up a bit, than what we're used to seeing him, and that could have been just to try and counter the weight advantage that Roy was carrying around. So,
All right.
I mean, you're right. You're right. It needs to be a master's division. Like I said, a master's division is coming. Okay, just juice them to the gills and let them go out there and just let them have it,
Yeah,
dude.
but you
Bare
keep
knuckle
talking about
eating.
this. You keep talking about this Masters division, and I have yet to see a Masters division fight that I have been like, we need a whole division of fighters like this. I mean, that's
We
the
got
thing. Is like I haven't
the
seen like you can't make a whole division out of Anderson Silva. I mean, Anderson last week, Anderson did a great job hanging with the young buck, Israel Adesanya, but Anderson is one guy. Like who else you gonna put in that Masters division?
man. Anybody that's been a champion, that's ever been a champion, and let's see here, and are over the age of, let's say, 37. We'll give them 37. Anybody over the age of 37, you're in.
Okay,
And
so
that gives you a few more years of competitiveness, okay? And we'll just make it open weight. Let's just open weight
oh
that
wow,
sucker,
wow,
okay?
you're going
Yeah,
all the way back. You're going all the way back to
yeah.
UFC one, open weight, whatever you can do. You walk in there, you show up, you can fight.
Hey, as long as you don't have like cootie bumps on you, you're good, man.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, that main event, Michael Venom Page defeated Paul Daley via unanimous decision. I'm gonna be honest with you. I watched this fight, and I was less than impressed. I know that people wanted to see, fireworks, and when you have two fighters who are extremely talented strikers, it's very difficult, to have that light 'em up, rock 'em sock 'em type of fight. Paul Daley had to play a strategic fight, but for me, he didn't throw a single punch in the first round. I have 5 minutes of just circling the ring. Michael Venom
And
Page
I
threw like
think,
5.
and I think the reason why was because his game plan was to take him down, because he knew that Venom Page's number one weakness, and it's been proven time and time again, is that he has a very bare minimum ground game. And that's the curse of the British fighters, that there are British fighters out there that have no wrestling, no jiu-jitsu experience until they come over here and they come to an American top team or, American Kickboxing Academy or something like that and get that good wrestling. And it's a shame because, I mean, don't get me wrong. You had one punch man versus the man that can knock you out with one punch. Okay, literally. So one of them had to take him down. Okay, we knew Venom wasn't going for it. I was very impressed with how Paul Daley took him down, but let's put it in the scope of things. Paul Daley couldn't take down a normal UFC fighter. He's already proven that. Any other non-British fighter, he proved that with Nick Diaz. Okay, you just anybody can go back to the old Strikeforce days, look at Nick Diaz and Paul Daley and see how that went.
Yeah, I don't even think you have to go back that far because Paul Daley faced off against John Fitch.
Yes, and
Fitch
anybody can watch that. Yeah,
held him down and just beat him up, and it was like, but we're gonna get to my point about pure strikers who try to grapple in a minute. But it just, for me, second and third round, Paul Daley was able to get MVP to the ground, was able to beat him up a little bit. Michael Venom Page was able to reverse the takedown in the fourth round, was able to beat Paul Daley up. Coming into the fifth round, it was 2-2, basically on my scorecard. And then in the fifth round, Michael Venom Page just looked a little bit more active. Ended up on top at the end of the round. I think that's what won the fight for him. Paul Daley was upset about it, but I don't see where he definitively won that fight from Michael Venom Page.
I think it was more pride that he was mad at. His pride was mad at him. I mean, in the fifth round, it was like, Venom. They told Venom to, all right, turn it on now. Okay, it's time to fight. And he went out there. He became more aggressive. Daley's the one thing Daley did the entire match was he backed up and he kept circling. He did not have control of the pace. Okay, he did not show aggression. That's what lost him the fight. That's what lost him round one. If he would have had a punch for every punch that Venom Page threw, he would have won that match. He would have won that matchup, in my opinion.
Perhaps.
But he didn't. And it's unfortunate because it's unfortunate because I love both fighters, but let's put it out there: Venom Page is a more dynamic fighter, and I did not choose him. I chose Paul Simtex to bring it in, so I will eat my crow gladly. Okay, because it had the potential to be a great fight, but just like all great fights that are on paper, they just don't pan out in the real world.
All right, let's go into the last fight of fight weekend, war weekend, UFC on ESPN. Francis Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez, February 17, 2019, Talking Stick Resort Arena in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where Cain Velasquez went to college. So he was an Arizona State fighter and a wrestler, and so this was like a homecoming for him. So let's talk about some of the fights on that card. Key ones: Kron Gracie versus Alex Caceres via submission in round one. Kron Gracie, his UFC debut. It didn't take him very long to wrap Alex Caceres up. Bruce Leroy had to tap.
Yeah, the son of Hickson, and I think I may have found the Pride documentary Choke that really focused on him. I'm gonna have to put that up because y'all gotta understand that was a classic Gracie takedown and submission right there. Because once Khan had his hands on him, it was pretty much over, and that's how it's gonna be until he becomes champion, until he retires. Is that when he gets his hands on you, it is over. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that was something that they talked about, at the fight as well, is that, when you look at, there are just a handful of fighters that all they need is one takedown. You start thinking about Kron Gracie, he needs one takedown. Damian Maia.
One takedown.
And it's all he needs, and he can finish that fight.
Yeah. What about, can we put Brian Ortega in that conversation?
I think you could. I really do think you can. He likes, now he's kind of adapted his striking, and so he likes to stand and bang. But when he wants to finish that fight, he can take it to the ground one time and you're out. And that's the thing that's going to be very difficult to for fighters to have to deal with, is that you have these fighters that you have to be so aware of what they're doing and whether or not they're going to take you down, because if they take you down, then your odds of winning are low, which was why Tyron Woodley caught so much grief when he fought Damian Maia, because he was injured in the fight, but he also didn't want to get taken down because you're in the ring with an anaconda at that point.
Exactly. And people got to understand that Khan's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is different than most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is fought defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this branch of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu that he's fighting with is a very aggressive style, and if you're not, it's not a backup to if he's on his back. No, this is when he starts to bell. This style kicks in, and he's going to get you. And it's a very aggressive style, but it's a very effective style. It's a style that Royce Gracie used to win.
Now, here's my question for you: did you see any weaknesses in his game?
His striking. His striking is going to be a problem.
Yes.
But look, did you see who was in the corner of Con Gracie?
He's got Nate Diaz in his corner.
Yes, and that means if you have Nate Diaz in his corner, more than likely you got his boxing coach.
Or
and his boxing coach is probably both. Okay, probably both. But that tells you that he's going to have that same striking coach that Diaz used. And let's put it out there. That striking coach is a very effective coach. Okay. He has proven time and time again, especially with Nate more than Nick, that, because we all, he's a better striker all around. He's long, he's lanky. But, with that said, he teaches them effective boxing, the 50%, 100% boxing. You tap them with 50% and then randomly throw in a 100% punch when they think that you're not hitting me with anything. That's an effective boxing technique.
Paul Felder defeated James Vick, the Texecutioner. I mean, he was our guy. We had James Vick. This was a close fight. Paul Felder had this in hand. But you know what was shocking about this fight? Paul Felder suffered a collapsed lung in the third round.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
Wow. That's a dog in a fight right there,
so
man.
This is the second time that he's had to fight through adversity. In his previous fight, he had a broken arm, and he still fought through the broken arm and won. I think he won. I don't remember if he won or not, but he had to fight through a broken arm. Now he had to fight through a collapsed lung in a very competitive fight. I mean, James Vick wasn't winning the rounds, but he could have won the fight at any moment. And especially as we got down to and this is the type of fight that you want to see. You want to see a fight where you're looking at two guys and the fight is escalating as the fight gets later on in the round. So, when you're thinking about the first round, they're just kind of feeling each other out. But as you get into the second round and into the second half of the third round, the pace that they're putting on now is something where it's anybody's fight. And I think that's where we were with this fight between Paul Felder and James Vick. But on the scorecards, James Vick came out just a little bit short. So,
it's heartbreaking, but a highly competitive fight. Have they released the bonuses yet on who made what yet?
I'm sure they have already. I don't know if that was fight of the night. Just because they were the co-main event. The main event, though, was a very short fight.
Are we gonna call? If we call that, well, I'm checking it right now. If they call that fight of the night, I'm gonna be hurt.
They shouldn't. But I'm gonna go ahead and introduce it. Francis Ngannou defeated Cain Velasquez via knockout in round 1. It was a 26-second fight. That is a buffer factor fail.
Yes, it was, man. It was brutal, dude.
The thing is that just for people who may be new, the buffer factor says that a fight has to last at least as long as it takes to announce it. It takes for a main event. It takes Bruce Buffer about 2 minutes and 20 seconds to announce the fight. So what is that? That's 240 seconds. This fight lasted. It's 240 seconds. The fight lasted 26 seconds. So by the time Bruce Buffer finished announcing this fight, Cain Velasquez could have been finished 9 times. And this ain't Ferris Bueller. This is 9 times.
Man.
9 finishes. I'm sorry, man. It breaks my heart to see someone who's been gone for basically 2 years, nurturing injuries, trying to get back to health. He had a child and he wanted to be a father, for his child. All of those things that kept him out of the octagon. When he finally comes back, He gets finished in 26 seconds. So,
but hold on, but see that 26. All right, so it would be different if it was versus a guy that wasn't known for blasting people, with one hit. Okay, let's put it out there. A lot of people kind of discounted Francis Ngannou, me being one of them. I'll be the first one to say it. Because I was looking for Kane to take a single leg to him, get him on the ground, and own him. It wasn't going to happen, and and he potentially, with that knockout that they gave, that Francis gave him, he potentially has another injury to deal with now, a buckled knee. So we'll see in the coming days if he's all right and if he comes back.
So here's the thing, I was pretty upset about this fight after watching it because everyone's giving Francis Ngannou the you just defeated Cain Velasquez. Oh, you're the great knockout artist. And it's like, wait a minute. Yes, you won the fight. Clearly, the fight needed to be stopped. Cain Velasquez was not able to intelligently defend himself. But I found it difficult to see where Cain Velasquez was actually knocked out by.
Okay.
Don't just hold on.
I'm letting you go.
I didn't see it, and so it was like I saw a bunch of missed punches, but I didn't see something that I could say that is what knocked Cain Velasquez out. And I was pretty adamant about this was not something that Francis Ngannou should hang his hat on. Now, subsequently today, I was able to watch a slow-mo video of the exchange that ended the fight, and there is a small short uppercut that catches Cain Velasquez, and so I was like, okay, even though I don't feel like Francis Ngannou knocked out Cain Velasquez, what I do believe is that there was something that I can point to and say this was a punch that could have hurt Cain Velasquez, and so I could have peace. Here's the problem, and then I'll come back to you. The problem is that I watched the post-fight press conference, and Cain Velasquez is a person that always is, is a great sportsman. He's fair and he's honest about what happened. And what he said was, I was not hurt. Francis Ngannou did not hit me with anything that rocked me, that put me into a position that I was in danger. Basically, he said, I took a step, my knee popped. When I adjusted my position, it gave out, and that's when I went to the ground. That that Francis Ngannou capitalized on him falling, and that is what caused the fight to end because the ref saw his knee give out, and that's when the ref stepped in. So this short uppercut that everyone's pointing to is saying that Cain Velasquez got rocked. Cain Velasquez is like, listen, I was fine. It was my knee that popped right before it gave out, and when I readjusted, and you can go back and look, if his knee pops right before he steps and then it falls, then the punch had nothing to do with him going down. So, I even though I've come back from Cain Velasquez didn't get knocked out, I've stepped back from that because there was a punch that you could point to, and we never know because we weren't in there and we didn't get hit by it. But the fact is that Cain himself said, I was fine. I was never in any danger. My knee gave out, and they had to stop the fight to protect me. And so I'm going to stand on that. I believe Cain. Sorry, Francis. You get the W, but I'm not crediting you with the win.
Okay, so here's the counterpoint. Okay, and once again, I'm a huge Cain Velasquez. I think he is a very good representation of how a champion should hold himself. Okay, if he gets beat, he says, "Hey, I got beat." Okay, if he wins, he says, "Hey, I won." I saw the punch. Okay, when I had to go back a couple of times, and I saw the punch to hit him too, and. To say, Cain sat there and said, I was never in any trouble. But at the same time, he said he got caught when he was in the ring. Okay, he said that, hey, I got caught. I went in too fast. I got caught. It is what it is. All right. I don't want to say that's a case of the it wasn't that bad, but hey, dude, you called it in the ring. You got popped and you went down. Okay, I think he would that it was a contributing factor that his knee buckled, but I wouldn't say that for him to say that he wasn't hurt at any point by his punches. I don't want to say all that. I think there was too much pain coming from his knee to really realize that, hey, this punch actually messed me up pretty good. So that's how I'm going to sit with it.
All right. I mean,
because the world may never know. Okay, it's one of those things.
The world will never know, and the record book will always show that Francis Ngannou won by knockout. That is the official call, and so that is what I'm going to accept. I think Kane accepts it as well, but here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Francis Ngannou escaped Curtis Blades with a knockout, and it was a clean knockout, and I had nothing to say. Francis Ngannou escaped Cain Velasquez with a buckled knee. That Francis Ngannou does not have the grappling and submission game that he needs to be able to be a competitor. And he is getting by these flash knockouts and things like that, but it cannot sustain him. And that's the only thing that I keep coming back to, is that people think that Francis Ngannou is the best thing since sliced bread, that he is the heir apparent to the title, but he has a major hole in his game, and it just so happens that it hasn't been exploited yet. Stipe Miocic showed us how to beat him, but unfortunately, Curtis Blades got knocked out before he could do it. Cain Velasquez, he had his knee give out.
So, with that said, saying that he escaped, I mean, it's just like he's the Death Star, and there's a trench in there that we need to hit. Until you hit that trench, he's still going to destroy you. Okay, to say that he escaped, yes, he has a weakness. He has a definite weakness, and until his camp treats that weakness, it's gonna be they're doing him a disservice. I mean, if I was his camp, every day that he's not training for a fight, he's rolling on the mat with somebody. And unfortunately, there's only just a few heavyweight fighters in that division that have wrestling skills that can really give him a threat and make him lose. And Curtis Blades is one. Stipe is another. Cain Velasquez should have done it, but guess what? That might have been his last fight, dependent on his knee injury. So we need better fighters. I mean, does Francis Ngannou be the catalyst to make that next evolution of heavyweight fighter come in there with a seriously legit ground game? Because Stipe, I mean, yes, we have Daniel Cormier in there right now. Okay, and Daniel says as much as he wants to go out there and beat him, he's not going to do it. He wants to avenge his teammates' loss, which is cool, but he's never going to do it because he's only got one or two fights in him, okay, to do it. So what needs to happen is that there needs to be a next evolution in the heavyweight division, and two things need to come out of it: better cardio and a serious ground game. Okay, right. If that's the division that makes the wrestlers, that's the division that makes the wrestlers.
All right, well, I'm going to let you have the last word on that. Let's go into the next segment where we look at the headlines that are making waves in the wake of the war weekend. This is Finding the Angles.
Finding the Angles.
This is Finding the Angles. This is where we look at the headlines that people are talking about in the UFC and the MMA world. The first one that we have this week is Nick Diaz says he is not coming back unless you make him an offer he can't refuse.
And Dana isn't going to do that yet. Dana don't like him that much. Yeah, we might as well call the swan song on Nick Diaz. He's done what he needed to do. He's beaten who he needs to beat. He don't really care. He doesn't have that energy. He's not hungry anymore.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's
it.
yeah. I
He's
think
not
that
hungry.
he's not hungry. The only fight that I could see him, I could see him maybe fighting the Anderson Silva fight in Curitiba, just because that fight was ruled a no contest. Uh, but that's about it. I don't really see Nick Diaz fighting anybody else that I really want to see. Especially not at
If it has
170 or 185.
if it has a belt around it, he'll come back. But
Yeah, but
nobody about to give him
yeah,
that.
I mean, yeah, Tyron Woodley's not going to fight him. I mean, he's got two
No.
guys that he needs to really face. You got at 185, Robert Whitaker's got a bowel problems, so he's got two guys that are waiting for him to. So it's like there's nothing for you left in the UFC. So I think that Nick Diaz saying that he's not coming back, it's probably a safe bet, unless you pay him a lot of money, which I don't know that he's got that. He's got that anymore. Let's go to the next topic. So, featherweight tourney, the Bellator, is saying that they are getting ready to spin up a 16-man featherweight tournament. So they had so much success with the heavyweight Grand Prix. The welterweight Grand Prix is actually doing really well right now. And so featherweight is the next one. I think that Bellator may have found the secret sauce to be able to actually compete with the UFC.
Yes, a professional fight league actually made the formula. In my opinion, they did a tournament format, and how it should be. There should always be a tournament going on to determine the number one. Once they have that champion, then they reshuffle the deck, bring it. Those who lost get shuffled out. We bring in some newer talent, and they just go back at it again. And that's how it always should be.
Well, what I like about it is what they're doing with the welterweight Grand Prix. So this is what they were talking about, and I have to go back and validate that this is the way it's going to work. But the welterweight champion is in the welterweight Grand Prix, so his fight his preliminary round fight is a title fight. If he gets beat, then the person who beat him carries that belt to the next round. Holy moly!
That's how it's supposed to be.
That is how it's supposed to be, man. Like, I'm excited about that now. Like, man, if Rory McDonald loses at any time, his belt is gone, and that person now carries the belt into the next round until it gets to the finals, where you fight for whatever the cash prize is and the belt. And I hope that they do that again, because they weren't talking about it for this when they were covering the featherweight tournament. They weren't really saying that it was going to be for a title as well, because they were like, well, we'd like to get the champion in there, but it's for a cash prize, a multi-million-dollar prize. They have to do this. It has to be. Every time you do a Grand Prix, the belt has to be on the line. The champion competes, brings his belt into the ring, and then you have to, if you want to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. And the champ has 4 fights. He already knows who he's going to have to fight. I love it.
Exactly. That's how, honestly, that's how it should have been. I mean, they, like I said, put the top 16 in there. Like I said, when it's all said and done, people get shuffled out, people get shuffled in. We do it all over again. I can't understand how is that so difficult to do in UFC. I cannot. And the reason why that they don't do it is, I think it has to deal with the money thing. They want to, pay bills right now and go for super fights and make double champs and such. And it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I'm starting to look at Bellator differently. That I think that what we are looking for here in the MMA world is a legitimate ladder. And I think that when you do a Grand Prix, some type of tournament, you build a ladder that you can then say X beat Y, so therefore X is better than Y.
Yes, and it validates, and it's always living. It's a living bracket, okay? It never slows down. You will never be like, well, why is this person in this? He beat these guys over here. That's the reason why. Look at the last tournament. That's the reason why he's number 3. This is the reason why he's number 2. This is the reason why we have a champion. Right. That's how it's supposed to be done. That may be the clincher. Now we just need to get some really good quality fighters, and even then, or better yet, they need to get a marketing team that develops the fighters that they have there. start telling their stories, because I know there's some great stories in Bellator. Okay, and of course they're getting the old UFC fighters. I didn't know half the fighters. I didn't know that John Fitch was fighting in Bellator until then. I was like, whoa,
He's the one who's John Fitch is who's fighting Roy McDonald. So basically, John Fitch, because of the luck of the draw, got a title shot.
Exactly. Okay.
How amazing is that?
That is awesome. Okay, it's like I said, if UFC did that, there would be no more problems. There wouldn't be anything we'd have to complain about. Okay.
So speaking about things that we need to complain about, there's somebody who was complaining, and that is Anthony Lionheart Smith. He finally responds. Colby Covington has been a jerk for a very long time. And this weekend, Colby Covington was like, John Jones posted something on his Twitter page or whatever. It was about, the champ versus the hungry lion, and Colby Covington makes this snide response to John Jones saying, "Don't look, why don't you go and no one's looking, why don't you go and snort some picograms?" And Anthony Smith, we already said how Anthony Smith does not tolerate trash talking, doesn't tolerate any of this, annoying promo talk. He went in.
He does not.
Here's what he said. He says, "It's played out, Colby. It's not funny anymore. Stop throwing shade at my fight. Also, I heard you have an issue with me getting a title fight. Next time I see you, we should talk about that. Or you're going to tuck your tail and hide in the corner of the gym like you did in Chicago." So It's like, woo. I had to respond to that one. I was like, shots fired. Cousin Anthony ain't taking anything off of Colby Covington.
Wow. Yeah. And what Colby gonna do?
He didn't say nothing.
What Colby gonna do? If he didn't check it over the weekend after that, Platinum Perry threw a ring on his girlfriend's finger.
Yes.
And Colby hit him with the, hey, it's good to know, something to the effect of, that's great to know that there's a law in Florida that you can marry your horse. And I was like, dude, you really don't want Platinum. Platinum's the one person that you don't do that to, because Platinum will show up on you. Okay, he's that dude.
This is what's so interesting about what Anthony Smith said. You heard he referenced, or are you going to tuck your tail and hide in the corner of the gym like you did in Chicago?
Oh, he told us everything he did.
Okay, yeah. So Anthony Smith was talking about the fact that Colby Covington has pissed so many people off that he's forgotten who all he's pissed off. And so what's happened now is Colby can't train in the same place as the other fighters because he's always looking over his shoulder. And so what happened was he went to Chicago, and even though they were training at the UFC facility or wherever the UFC had staged, the training for the card, Colby went and found another gym, but he didn't know that the gym was owned by Anthony Smith's manager. So Anthony Smith shows up in Chicago, and he says he sees Colby Covington training by himself in a corner, and he's looking over his shoulder, cowering, because he doesn't know if one of the people that he's talked smack to is just going to roll up on him and smack him in the back of the head.
Hey, that's what you get. Okay, you live by the sword, you will die by the sword.
Right.
Hey, homie. Hey, just be careful what you say and how you say it, because it's gonna come back to you.
That's right. So listen, I am not.
I find it hilarious.
I think it's hilarious. I think that, in a sport where you're supposed to have some level of respect and some propriety, when it comes to your fellow fighters, I know that part of that sport is talking smack. That's how Conor McGregor got his claim to fame and things like that. But Colby Covington has gone so far out in right field that it's just, it's not the ethos of the sport. Nobody likes it. Like, nobody likes it. And you can't even say, oh, I see what you're doing now. You're just trying to promote. You're trying to do your thing. It has gotten to the point now where the exploitation of women in the videos that he does and the constant promoting of Donald Trump, which is unrelated to the UFC at this point.
Right.
It's just so tired.
It is, and you're right. There was a point where everybody saw like, okay, Kobe, we see what you're doing. You're just trying to get a fight in there. We get you, but he amped it up, and he kept amping it, and kept amping it, to now everybody in the division that didn't even have. There's not just the division. Everybody on the fighter roster wants a piece of Colby Covington at this point. And that should tell you, at some level, that should tell you, like, oh, I think I may cool out for a little bit. No fighter wants to take him under the wing and be like, dude, you need to cool out, man. No, everybody wants to put their fist in his face. And I'm okay with that, unfortunately. Because there comes a point where you talk just too much smack, and now you got to face the consequence. So the only thing he needs to do is just go to a gym one day, get in the center of the ring, and be like, I'm taking, and just point at the crowd and be like, I'll take on all of y'all, and just come on with it. Y'all got a beef with me? Let's hash it out in the ring.
Well,
he may not make it.
It reminds me of that guy. I don't remember his name, but he was the dude that said he was 114-0, and he would go and he would hand a pair of boxing gloves.
Oh, yeah, that
He'd hand
guy,
a pair of boxing gloves to somebody and be like, you want to, so the guy would put the gloves on, and they would tap gloves, and then he would just wail on that person, right? Until he actually faced some real boxers, and it was like, oh, maybe I should stop doing this. And he faced off against Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder tried to knock his head off. Like, this is what Colby Covington and that guy, they are on the same plane of existence right now.
And so, therefore, you're going to have to take your lump at some point. You just might want to take it with somebody that just wants to submit you, maybe, put you in an arm bar and just keep it there for a few minutes, because you don't want to take that knockout. Because that knockout, there's going to be about 10, 15 more punches behind it, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And pray don't go pride.
You're going to get that elbow drop like Michael Bisping had to eat after all that smack he talked to Dan Henderson.
Exactly.
H-bomb and then the elbow. Blow! Let's go to the last story. Artem Lobov has a home.
Oh, man. Yes.
So the GOAT, the great one, Artem Lobov, the Russian Hammer, has signed with Bare Knuckle FC. He has a home. He's left the UFC to go fisticuffs.
Because the UFC apparently is just too soft for him. And so he's going someplace where he can just let it ride all night long. Okay, and the Bare Knuckle FC said we might have a home for you. All right.
Yeah, I think this is a natural progression for Lobov. I mean, we honored him when he left the UFC by saying that he was a person who would find the biggest, baddest guy, who would fight them on any type of, with little to no notice whatsoever. Artem Lobov would fight that fight, and so it's a natural, a natural thing for me to see him go from the UFC, which is a pretty brutal sport, to basically the most primal of the sport, which is the bare knuckle fighting. And so for me, I don't know that he's going to do much better because he still has, the problem of not having the reach that's commensurate with his weight class. But it's
it'll be interesting.
I'll watch it. I'll watch and see how he. I mean, I won't watch it because I just cannot watch bare knuckle fighting. But I will follow up on it when he gets his fight, whatever his first fight is going to be. We'll definitely talk about it on the show. I'll probably try to watch that one, but I still can't get into bare knuckle fighting. Just can't do it.
Dude, believe it or not, I watched a bare knuckle event. It's not as bad as one would think, okay? Because eventually the fighters will have to stop punching and resort to palm strikes because they have punched so hard that their knuckles hurt, okay? Pain is a surprisingly motivating factor to stop punching and to try other tactics, which is why I think that it should be reinstituted, into the UFC because it will teach these fighters punching efficiency, okay? It'll teach them, when to punch and how much work rather than just wailing, okay? Because trust me, you try to hammer fist with bare knuckles if you want to, see what happens, okay?
Yeah, I would disagree with you there. I can't. I do not think there is a place in the sport of UFC, or in UFC or MMA for bare knuckle fighting.
I know there is.
I'm not for it.
I know there is, my friend. I know there is. Okay, because like I said, it would literally it would make some people think it would make for a boring fight. No, it would make for a more intense fight because now they're going to incorporate that grappling style into their fighting. Okay, they're not just going to hang back and just throw strikes all day. They're going to incorporate all factors of MMA into a fight because you just can't continuously punch somebody, unless you've been a veteran of some brawl and you've calloused up your knuckles so much that you can continue to punch like that. It's just not going to happen.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I still disagree. I am not into it whatsoever. But I definitely understand. Like, just people can't understand why I like MMA so much. I love it. I can see that you've got a passion for the bare knuckle stuff. Good on you. We'll cover it when someone notable, like when Chris Lieben, if he comes back and fights again, or Artem Lobov,
okay.
or maybe even if Johnny Hendricks sees fit to try to get his face punched with bare knuckles again, we'll cover it. We'll cover. Yeah, he got blown up, dude.
Did he? He got destroyed.
Bare knuckles lasted maybe a minute. It was bad. But
yeah,
we covered it on the show because it's Johnny Hendricks and he's a hometown guy, so we're gonna cover it. But it's not for me. Let's go on to the fight card.
The official decision.
This is the fight card. This is where we look at the fights that are coming up this weekend. We've got two major events coming up this weekend, Bellator and the UFC. We're going to cover Bellator 217, Gallagher versus Graham, Saturday, February 23rd, 2019 at 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. There are two fights that we're going to talk about on this card. There's probably like 4 or 5 fights, but the two fights we're going to talk about on the card, Charlie Ward versus Jamie Stevenson. You might remember Charlie Ward, not because he is a former Florida State quarterback and New York Knicks basketball player, but because Charlie Ward is a good friend of one Conor McGregor. The last time we saw Charlie Ward, he won a fight at the very end of the round. Conor McGregor jumped into the ring and then got into it with the referee, and you guys
the start of his shenanigans.
And pun intended, yeah. Start to his shenanigans. But also James Gallagher is fighting versus Stephen Graham. That is the main event, and James Gallagher is also in the Conor McGregor stable, as I recall. This was the guy that Mac Life had followed, and remember, and then he was fighting and got just destroyed. And everyone was like, wait, you talked all this smack like you're the next Conor McGregor, and then you got destroyed. And he's like, it's a fight. That's what happens sometimes. I'm just going to have to bounce back. So this is him bouncing back. So I would expect to see Conor McGregor in the audience for Bellator 217. Hopefully he will sit his tail down and watch the fight like a normal human being.
Unless he's on that proper 12 gas, man, he's gonna be in that ring. All right,
dude. I sure hope Bellator knows that he's probably gonna come, and why don't they just put some extra security around him, have a word with him, pull him out of the line, and say, listen, you can come watch the fight, enjoy it, but do not cause ruckus in our fight, or we will escort you out.
There you go. I think they will this time. I think, based off the last event, they will have a little chit chat with him. Like, hey, man, we watching you. We got these 6 goons over here, especially for you.
Right.
Okay? They'll carry you out.
And we got more outside. So if you bring your posse, then we will have you there too. So you can't rush. You can't rush the.
Well, and you got to be careful because he's in Dublin. He's in Dublin.
That's his hometown.
That whole crowd is his posse. Okay, so fight him, you're gonna be fighting them. All right, so just let it be known.
And then the UFC Fight Night. It's 145. You've got Jan Blachowicz versus Thiago Santos. This is going to be a great fight. There are a bunch of fighters on the card that we have known and loved. John Dodson, the magician, is on there fighting Peter Yan. You got Gian Villante versus Michal Oleksiejczuk.
All right. I'm proud of you, man. Hey, speak and spell is your friend. I'm telling you. Yes. I wasn't going to pronounce it.
Yeah. You got Liz Carmouche coming back. It's been a long time since we've seen Liz Carmouche fight versus Lucy Pudilova, Stefan Struve versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima, and then in the main event of the evening, Jan Blachowicz versus Thiago Santos. We got to do some flash fight picks. Tell me, sir, who you got?
Man, I got. So are we doing just the top two, or just the last?
What you gonna do?
I'm gonna go with Thiago Santos. I'm gonna do Thiago Santos. I've always been he's a scrapper, always a fan favorite. I think he's gonna pull a win on this one.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about Jan Blachowicz, he's an all-around fighter, but he's not necessarily great in anything. And they call Thiago Santos the Hammer for a reason. I mean, he has got the Mjolnir on his chest. It's there. Like, that guy is a hammer. He beats people up.
He has proven it time and time and time again that he will beat it out of you. Okay.
So you and I are in agreement. We're gonna go with Thiago Santos for the win. And that is our show. Follow us on social media. We don't really, I'm still on Twitter, but most of the stuff that I do now is really on Instagram. So let's just jump right into it. I'm Combat Sports Talk on Instagram.
And I'm at Keys to Victory on Instagram as well.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at CST Ryan, but I'm hit or miss there. Most of the stuff is on Instagram. You can go to our website on www.combatsportstalk.com. I am in the midst of updating and refreshing it, so it looks very different than what it looked like in the past.
Yes.
And you can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram. You can find us on Spotify, just about any podcast site. And then, of course,
we are everywhere.
We are everywhere.
Infecting your speakers. Okay, that is what we do.
Right.
All right.
And Instagram. You can find us. Go to our Facebook, or not our Facebook page, but go to our website, www.combatsportstalk.com, and you will see the merchandise link. Click it. Get yourself one of these Combat Sports Talk. There you go. Combat Sports Talk t-shirt. I got them all different colors. Get you one. All right. And then we add a new section for live events. We haven't done a live event with George in a long time, but I think we are going to get together for UFC 235. That's going to be it. That's the fight of the year so far.
I might have to join y'all for that one. I've yet to meet George in person. I think I can swing that. I think I can do that.
All right. So follow us on social. Our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at scottdeancountry.com. Casey Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For John Keys, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw balls.